Okay? It's easy fixed. What am I talking about? Well, the so-called hate speech on Israel. Not going to change my fucking way of speaking about it, I'll tell you now. Why? Because nobody seems to grasp the concept of what Israel is. Or who. Israel is a who, not a what. Who is Israel? He's the son of Jacob. One of the 12 tribes of Jacob. It's a people group. Israel that we know today, it's actually Canaan. C-A-N-A-A-N. Canaan. Or Canaan. They were Canaanites. The land was stolen from the Canaanites and given to the Zionist Jews by the United Nations. Ooh. Yeah. After World War II. That's what happened there. So, hello? There's nothing biblical, faith-based or religious about it. You're being played, people. You're being played. By lumping all Jews into one pot when you had Ishmael, one of the sons of Abraham, who played up pretty bad, him and his mum. They played up pretty bad. And they were banished from Abraham's, from the house of Abraham. And they went into Egypt. Caused a bit of a stir there. See, unless you actually grasp the concept of this, you actually don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. You only think you do because you're listening to the fucking idiots on the TV and you're listening to the government. The government's playing you for a bunch of fucking idiots. A bunch of fools. And that's what yous are. So fine. If they want to play with the definitions of words, let's call it what it is. The current day government of the biblical Canaan. It's what it is. It's the current day government of the biblical Canaan. So how about we give Israel back to Israel? We give Israel back to the Canaanites. Ooh. Yeah, ooh. Oh, for those who, I don't eat 24/7. I sleep about 2 hours. You might think I'd be a fat bastard, wouldn't you? No. I couldn't get fat if I tried. Believe me, I tried. It's like this. Why not? Let's have a look at it.
Australia just passed legislation basically criminalizing free speech. This just passed today. Yesterday I made a video about how the Israeli lobby has its grip on Australia, and the legislation that just recently passed is truly shocking and shows more evidence of this. So here's the specific piece of the legislation I want to share with you guys, and then I'm going to play a clip of what an individual in the Israeli lobby in Australia said prior to this legislation being passed. So it's right here in section B that's really important. A hate crime also includes, in all circumstances, a reasonable person who is the target or a member of the target group to be intimidated, to fear harassment or violence, or to fear their safety. So, of course, before I start talking a bit more, I'm going to go ahead and just play show this disclaimer here. I don't support violence towards any group of people. That should be pretty obvious. The issue with this legislation here is that it opens the door for a lot of problems. It says that if there is a reasonable person who feels harassed or targeted, then that's considered a hate crime. It doesn't state whether what they are experiencing harassment and harassment to is an issue at all. It just says if the person's feelings are affected, if the person feels harassed, then that would be considered a hate crime. They state that it must be a reasonable person, but that's very vague. So if somebody says from the river to the sea, is that now a hate crime in Australia? If somebody says that Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank are a threat and shouldn't exist, is that going to be considered a hate crime if somebody feels that their lives are intimidated by this? Now, it might, because ultimately this was passed in part by the Israeli lobby in Australia, whose really their number one goal is to stop the protests. They want to completely shut down Palestine protests in Australia. That's not just coming from me, that's coming from an Israeli lobby elitist, an Israeli lobby individual in Australia. So take a listen to this clip here. It's truly just shocking to hear it come out of their mouths so brazenly. Let me go ahead and adjust my screen for you guys. Alrighty, take a listen to this.
No more protests. No more protests. Now, these things are very clear. Upgrades to security. Jewish community shouldn't have to be paying for it. They, the 25 million they gave to us, you can't use that for armed guards. Only physical structures, they said.
It's Australia.
We have to pay for our own armed guards? Are you serious? They should be appropriating and saying for the next 5 to 10 years, all your synagogues, all your shuls, all paid for. Everything that you need is paid for. Right? If you guys want armed police cars, if you want police cars out there just for visuals, I can send my daughter to a Jew.
So I'm just going to stop right here. This is Joel Burney. He is the Australia, Israel, and Jewish Affairs Council, AJAC, executive manager. So that basically very similar to the Anti-Defamation League, very similar to APAC, another Israel lobby, this time in Australia. Now, the reason it's important to bring this up, and I live in the United States, is because a threat to free speech in any of these Western countries is a threat to free speech against all of us. Same exact thing right now is happening in Argentina. They're pushing this IRA definition. They're basically criminalizing individuals that speak out against Israel because ultimately, this is what everybody needs to understand. The biggest threat to Israel is the truth. The biggest threat to Israel is the truth. What do I mean by that? The more people know about the atrocities that Israel commits, not just in Gaza, but in the occupied West Bank, the more that people know about the fact that Palestinians are living in brutal conditions of apartheid in the occupied West Bank, where settlers treat them like animals, the more that people know about that Christians in Palestine are being persecuted by IDF in the occupied West Bank, the more that people know about this, the more that people use their words and use their language to share what's happening in Palestine at the hands of the Israelis, the more of a threat it is to the existence of Israel, because it simply couldn't last. If the world knew what was happening in Palestine, the real depths of it, then Israel's existence is threatened. So the best way Israel knows how to stop this is by shutting down free speech. And it kind of tells you something. If you're on the side that's focused on shutting down free speech to make sure that you remain in power, then what's that say about the initiative or the objective or the state that you're trying to defend? If your number one objective is to shut down protests, to shut down criticism of your country, of your project in the Middle East, then what's that say about Israel? But they don't care. They're doing it in every single damn Western country, in the UK, in America, in Argentina, in Australia, and they won't stop. They're not going to stop. Because ultimately, what's their goal? They want to conflate all criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. They want to erase the existence of Palestinians, not just Palestinian people, but also every single aspect of their culture, their identity. They want Palestine to be evaporated. That's the goal. And they will use every single legislation at their disposal to make that happen. Every single piece of legislation the Israel lobby can use at its...
Okay. Do you want to know why they want to do that? Palestinians and Philistines. Right? All along the Gaza Strip, all the way up, right through to Iran, is the Philistines. Why? Because this comes down to the Ishmael, the illegitimate son of Abraham. You don't have to believe this. They do. This is their war that they're waging against us. Okay? We come from the tribes of Jacob. The Zionist Jews, who claim to be Israelites, are not Israelites. The Canaanites are Israelites. The Canaanites are the sons of Israel. Israel is a people group, not a territory. So what you're witnessing is, with Benjamin Netanyahu and his clan of no goods, the Zionists family bloodline of Ishmael, who are occupying Canaan thanks to the fucking United Nations, who sent all the dodgy Jews into Canaan and called it Israel, changed its name to Israel. Israel was never a place. It's never been a place. Israel was a man. One of the tribes of Jacob. Now, the 12 tribes of Jacob is all the land up through Palestine, up through to Iran. You've all got shit twisted. Ishmael was such a weirdo. He had kids with his stepsisters from another family. Where Ishmael's mother, what was her name? I'll think of it when it's irrelevant. Where Ishmael's mother, who was Abraham's handmaid, had more kids to someone else, and he had kids with his half sisters. Not his stepsisters, not his sisters-in-laws, his half-sisters. Sisters from the same mother. Bunch of inbreds. That's what you're witnessing. They're trying to steal what was never theirs in the first place, but they think they're entitled to it. Gee, sound familiar? They're very self-entitled, aren't they?
Disposal to erase Palestinians, it will not stop. There's no sense of morality when it comes to the powers that are at play. There really isn't. There really isn't. They're willing to do whatever it takes to end up pushing Israel's objectives in the Middle East. Of course, they're capitalizing on what happened on Bondi Beach. They're using this as an opportunity to pass legislation. You know what it reminds me of a lot? And I played this clip. I wish I had the clip saved here. I previously played in one of my other videos the 1994 London bombing, the 1994 bombing of an Israeli embassy in London. You guys remember that? I played that clip maybe a few videos ago. I'll take it somewhere here. And we had a former MI5 officer of the UK. So we had a former British intelligence officer come forward and say that the Israeli embassy bombing in London in 1994 was a false flag operation by the Israeli Mossad in order to garner sympathy and end the pro-Palestine movement in the UK.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to start investing in the Australian stock market this year as a beginner.
Here's the good news.
It's much easier than most...
At the time, the UK actually hid the report from British intelligence on the 1994 bombing because it was discovered within the report that the Israelis committed the attack. The Mossad then assisted quote-unquote, the MI5 in conducting the investigation on the attack. An Israeli comes to the site where the bombing happened. They take a piece of evidence. God knows what they took, what they did, what they manufactured, and they left. And it was reported. It was very well reported. And she's going about saying it just on video that this is what happened. And it ultimately ended up working out for Israel quite well. Israel got its way. Soon after that happened, legislation was passed in the UK. The Israeli embassy in London got more guards around its perimeter, which is exactly what it wanted. And more than anything, the Palestine movement in the UK really couldn't pick itself up on its feet after that moment. That's the same exact thing that's starting to happen now in Australia. That's the exact same thing. We're seeing now that they're capitalizing on an event. I'm not stating that anything was a false flag beyond what I can prove that with evidence. That's not what I'm saying. What I am stating, though, what we know for sure is they're capitalizing on what happened in Bondi Beach, and now they're putting forward legislation to stop protests, stop criticism of Israel, and they think that that's what's going to make them safer. That's what truly boggles my mind. You guys think by shutting down people's free speech they're gonna like you more? That by shutting down free speech, people are going to all of a sudden like Israel when Israel is single-handedly taking away their freedom, and that's somehow supposed to benefit Israel? Well, apparently that's what these individuals think.
No, it's not actually. The whole idea is to create conflict. Conflict is what they're chasing. This is why you need to walk away, people.
And at what point is it going to stop? That's the thing. I mean, we want to hopefully live out our entire lives. Is this just going to be what we expect to see in the future? More and more of this with advancement of AI. Now we have these elites stalking every single aspect of our lives. Really stalking every aspect of our lives. How far will they be willing to go to make sure that all criticism of Israel is shut down? Now in the age of AI, they can truly treat you just as a number, as a subject, and know every single aspect of your life, what you're doing on your phone. And we have these individuals at play, these elites, these lobbying groups that are pushing legislation to take away our free speech now in the age of AI, when we can barely speak up to begin with, when these algorithms track everything we do. This is unsustainable unless we want to wake up one day and it's 1984. We're headed towards it's a recipe for disaster. Clearly, though, the Israel lobby doesn't care. If anything, they're actually laughing about this. They're laughing in our faces about the fact that they basically control so much of our lives, and everything we can say about that project in the Middle East, they laugh. They mock us. They mock us knowing that they have all the cards in their hands. They mock us knowing that they have this much power over us. The Israel lobby, these individuals, they literally just laughing in our faces because of it. So let me go ahead and share my screen here one more time so you guys can kind of see what everybody else is saying. Now, let's see. You should be, yes, he should be worried, and I'll tell you what, Anthony Albanese, I'm coming for you. This is a senator in Australia who says she really wasn't given time to review this sort of legislation. And again, they're just going over the legislation. The government opposition claims to have dumped the controversial racial vilification clauses, but have quietly changed the definition of a hate crime to include the same language. The new hate crime bill was only delivered at 10 a.m. to One Nation. No one has been consulted on the inclusion or the incorporation of the state offenses. Changing a significant definition like this hasn't been looked at by anyone in the last week's inquiry. The coalition and the Greens should be condemned for rushing through these laws in secret deals with the government. Again, who do you think is really behind this sort of stuff? It's this dude. It's this guy among many others. These are the sort of individuals that are behind it. So, anyways, guys, that's really it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment.
Yeah. Paula Hanson playing her part. Albanese already played his part in creating bad vibes, I suppose you could say, and conflict in supporting Palestine. Now he's supporting the hate speech ban against Israel. Do you reckon he can pick a side, old each way elbow? Of course he can't. But we already know that Pauline Hanson has already capitulated to Israel. She's hanging around with the Zionists at Mar-a-Lago, like Gina Reinhardt and so on and so forth, etc., etc. She's turned to a grub. I've got zero respect for that fucking red-headed clown now. But what we've got to remember is that all of this stuff has been decades and decades and decades in the making. It's been decades in the making. It's thousands of years in the making. This is a 4,600-year-old argument over an inheritance. Yeah, this is why most of us don't get it. This is a 4,600-year-old argument over an inheritance. Once you grasp how far back it goes, how big it is, then maybe you'll start to grasp the fact that, it's not so hard, it's not so far-fetched to think that they might send a few thousand people here and there to create problems. Of course that's what they're doing. That's what I'd do. It's you've got to stop being so naive and so small-minded and so the world's a big place. But the World Wide Web made it awfully small and you're all caught in it. You're all caught in the net. You're all caught in the internet and the World Wide Web. Roll it away and start reading some books, some actual history, instead of just listening to fucking mongers telling you what to think, what not to think, what to look at and what not to look at. Like Bosie, well, don't look at Israel, don't look at Israel. Israel's not important, don't worry about Israel. As soon as he said don't look at Israel, I started thinking, okay, so what's your connection with Israel, Bosie? It's the first thing that clicked in my mind. He was so adamant to come out and tell everyone not to worry about Israel. That was a year and a half ago, a year ago. Well, a couple of years, actually that'll be a couple of years ago now. When they first started bombing Gaza, the Gaza Strip, Palestine. So how about we just call it what it is? The occupying government, the present day occupying government of the biblical Canaan. Because that's what it is. The land was stolen by United Nations and given to people that don't belong there.